Hi, this is Ed in San Diego, and you're on Global TV Talk Show. In just a couple of moments, we're going to have people arrive into the global meeting room for the Global New York recording. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thank you. We are live in the world, coming to you today. I'm in San Diego, and welcome, Stephen Howard.
Hi, Ed. How you doing?
Good. Say hello to Annalisa and Dr. Natalie, and meet my friend Patrick Michaels, and Mark Colo. This is Stephen Howard in Mexico City today.
Actually, I'm in Ixtapa today.
Oh, Ixtapa. It worked.
Yeah, right.
It worked. Oh, that's even better. Wow.
That's why I'm using the fake background. You wouldn't want to see my view.
There you go.
Yeah, right. Okay. We are recording as we're entering the global meeting room here to make it live and look like it's exciting. So, yeah. Hello, Jack. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Jack Champel in the Philadelphia area. Meet, if I may introduce also Isha Carroll from Oxford University area in England.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. Isha is an expert in language. Is that correct?
Yes, what I really do is help global professionals with clear English communication in the workplace. And I do that by building a bridge between where they are with the way they've learned English from their own language and how English is used in an international context. So it's about getting them from where they are as a Italian speaker, Mandarin speaker, whatever, to speaking English in a way that is understandable for everybody. Hopefully that's clear.
Yes, that's clear. And so your product is called pronounceme.co.uk, right?
Yes, that's the company.
Okay, so we're doing this with Isha today real quick because she's got a time constraint. And I just want to make sure that we have the privilege of your presence and your wisdom about language and about how business people around the world need to speak English and speak it well.
Exactly. And I think it's often assumed that people speak English well because they get their qualification, whether that's IELTS or, a C1 or C2 level qualification. And on paper, it looks as if they're a fluent English speaker. And in reality, the situation may be very different. They may be able to read and write and produce documents in English, but they may not be speaking English very clearly to a internationally intelligible level, or they may lack confidence. They may know that they don't know how to pronounce some words, or that sometimes people don't understand them, and they don't know how to fix it because by this stage in their career, they're often very high-flying executives, and it's kind of expected that they can communicate, but then sometimes they're thrown into situations like managing an international team and not everybody understands them. And that can deal a real blow to the confidence of someone who in every other respect is flying high in their career, and there's pressure on them. So this is where this training comes in, to give them that support that they really ideally needed earlier on in their education and training, to make sure that they understand how English is spoken and how difficult words are pronounced, especially vocabulary that pertains to their area of work.
All right, this is really cool. Jack Champel is with us from the Jersey Shore? Is that where you're at?
I live in Pennsylvania, but I do have a house at the Jersey Shore. So I am still in Pennsylvania. So.
Yeah, okay. Jack, meet my friend from Rotterdam, Tineke Rensen. Hi, Tineke.
Tineke.
And please meet my new friend from Luxembourg, Claudia Cementi.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, Claudia is top coach, top level, top tier, business oriented. We had a nice conversation, a get together yesterday, and here we are doing it on TV. So everybody meet Annalisa Landa, who's also a broadcaster and a good friend, has been on several of our shows, and she's all about values. What does that mean today?
Okay, so values. Oh yes, we just need leaders with higher values, higher standards of values, who lead with honor and integrity. And these things, you know, we see are very deficient in leadership today in our nations and in our corporations. So on a day-to-day level, it's about helping leaders to gain clarity and to lead with authenticity on a day-to-day basis. It's also helping brands to make their values work harder for them and to understand what it really means to have brand values, to engender trust in the consumer and in the marketplace, and to really lead on those values. And everybody wins.
Yeah, this is great. Okay, everybody, this is Patrick Michaels. He's been a friend for a number of years. His marketing prowess and expertise is recognized by absolutely top tier hotel industry and marketing luxury marketplace. What did I leave out, Patrick?
Oh, there's so much, Ed. You know, there's not enough time. It's great to see Jack Jampel. I have not seen Jack in quite a few years. Jack and I used to sit on a board together, and both from the Philadelphia region. So it's great to see Jack.
Yeah, it's great to see you too, Patrick. You look great.
Yeah. It's been too long, but yeah, Represent. We do sales and marketing on behalf of top tier clients, traditionally 5-star, hospitality, travel, global mobility. And we do a lot of entertainment clients as well as consulting. So yeah, it's been a ever-changing year and a half for me. You know, I relocated back from London, repatriated back to the US, launched a 5-star hotel in West Palm Beach, and now I'm relaunching Represent. So it's not yet official. It's been incredibly busy since I actually started Represent once again. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Ed.
And Represent is top tier presence making and executing a plan, but at the ultra net worth level.
Yeah, you know, it's really shifted. I launched Represent in 2020 during COVID after my tenure with Santa Fe Relocation. I ran marketing for 46 countries outside of the US, and I also ran sales for the UK and Benelux. So I did launch Represent at that time, and the Corman family asked me to return when I repatriated back to the US to launch a 5-star hotel in downtown West Palm. And yeah, I did that, and now I'm relaunching Represent. So it's been interesting. It's been busy, and I think this is my first time in Philadelphia in the past 6 weeks. I've been in 4 countries and 12 cities over the past 5 years. So it's been fun.
Okay, I want to introduce again Claudia Cementi, top coach in Luxembourg, very, very mathematically engineering oriented. That's really a great combination, Claudia. How do you apply that to coaching skills?
Well, I think I've come a long way, but indeed, my basic education academically was in mathematics and engineering, and I've liberated along the way my internal I, meaning the connector, the people person, and so on, which actually made it so that I could not stay in Cubicleville very long, that's for sure. And I went into consulting engineering, high tech, high ticket sales back in the day. But I have been solely focused on coaching, and especially team coaching, for the last few years. And I work primarily with corporate and entrepreneurial leadership teams.
Okay, so the combination of leadership training, and is that male, female oriented? It doesn't matter.
It is client oriented.
No, that's interesting. Okay, so is there a different approach?
I think that the very core of the work is to really dance to the music that's playing, meaning every engagement is truly a custom tailored engagement. And it's up to the coach or the pair of co-coaches, as it happens to be, to have a large enough bag of tools and so on to use in the moment. But it's not really any set really framework. You go in completely blank and really just see what's happening and adapt accordingly as the engagement unfolds.
Okay, so Tineke, let me just say quickly, you're going to have to do it bigger and better than me, but so Tineke is a very strong woman, has been on our program many times, a member of the press club. Thank you very much. And your specialty is identifying and communicating clearly that there's a difference between the feminine approach and the masculine approach when it comes to business. Dr. Natalie, I see you applauding and, and being involved. This is Dr. Natalie from Hamburg, and the psychological aspects of feminine approach, masculine approach in a business context is everything, isn't it, in terms of comfort and execution. So I'd like to have a discussion now with Tineke and Dr. Natalie, and of course, everybody.
Thank you, Ed, for the introduction. I think you can't say it's everything. It depends of the company. It depends of the team. It depends of the leaders. But I would advocate that purely masculine leadership is not what we need more of. So we definitely need a combination of feminine and masculine. And men can be feminine, women can be masculine. So it's not gender. But overall, women are more feminine, men are more masculine. There's a thing though, a business structure or a corporate structure is a masculine system. It's been invented by men, which is totally okay. You know, I think they did a great job. But up to like 30 years ago, women started approaching. And up till now, women could only be successful if they adopted everything that was how you can be successful in that masculine system. And none of us were aware of it, because that's just how it was. But now we can start to see that, for example, judging your team on data, on not deadlines, targets. It's all about controlling. It's all about managing, which is more masculine. Adding trust, adding belief in your people, that's more feminine. So what's good, what's bad? It depends of you, and none of it is good and bad. It depends of your team. It depends of the leader. It depends of the culture. But research has shown that mixed team, and then you can assume the mixed in masculine and feminine approach, they perform the best. So what's happening at the moment is that the traditional masculine CEO feels threatened by the female leaders, but still a lot of the female leaders are pretty masculine because they are not aware that they've adopted these styles. And what saddens me is that I talk to these women and they say, well, you know, I made it, so why can other women not? Which is very masculine. It's me, I made it, I'm here, and now you have to do the same. And I think women need help. The women who climbed the ladder, they've had help too. We all need help, whether we're men or women. Women usually acknowledge it a bit sooner, but we can't work on our different aisles. We all need each other. So I'm an advocate of not bashing the white, old, angry man. because I think we should admire what they've been doing, and it's time to change. So
Yeah, thank you very much. Let's go to Dr. Natalie. What's your take?
Well, I agree with Tineke, because especially the fact that it has nothing to do with whether you're female or male. And I think what we have seen is that, let's call it the fundamental building blocks have been put down. And now on top of those, we need to look at the individuals who serve in a company. So it is, you can't say one size fits all, because it has to do with the external and the internal needs of every individual person. There are personal and then there are professional needs that every single person has. So every conversation that a manager or hopefully a leader has, they are going to vary depending on who is on the other side of the conversation and what needs to be achieved. So, there might be a person who needs a little bit more empathy. You might need to share a little bit more of yourself in some instances, and in others, it doesn't really matter that you share. It's more about, were you able to do this? Why not? So we have to really balance, but it's all based on an open conversation. And I think the open conversation is, I don't want to say more feminine, but when it comes to the way that more feminine individuals talk, they tend to have a bit more empathy and to listen a little bit more. We always talk about active listening. So I think that is key here, figuring out who is in front of me. And you can also even use, the appreciative inquiry approach and say, okay, what do you want more of? So how can I help you? How can I serve you? And that requires more of a listening than the typical masculine idea of let's fix it. Sometimes you don't want to give away the opportunity to be involved and to come up with decisions yourself. So I think that's kind of key. And what Tineke is saying, she's absolutely right. We don't want to bash anybody. It's just that we need to say, this was great. And guess what? Now is a little bit of a different time. So let's adjust.
Okay, I want to go back to Claudia for a comment, please.
Yeah, so I think that it's all right and good, and what you said absolutely resonates. The danger, I believe, is to truly look at it in terms of gender. And I think using the words, masculine and female approaches and so on might be misleading. And I think that there's I think aspects of it of, let's say, the more dominant, more aggressive style people, whether they be actually male or female, being open to show a little bit more of that softer side, and what many of them might actually consider fluffy, or what the culture in general considers female or fluffy and so on. And they might very well be able to do it and even have the desire to do it, but they might have some reluctance to show themselves doing it. I think that there's also the capability on one hand, but also the perception of others on the other. And maybe they might feel that they lose some of their power if they liberate a little bit more of their softer side. And it's always, yeah, absolutely. Active listening is key, and having both the emotional intelligence and also the cultural intelligence, the intercultural intelligence, to have the ability to understand the person and the context so that you can adapt your communication style to the best use.
Okay, everyone use the chat and please introduce yourselves, exchange website, email, or any question, just like you just did. And take advantage of this opportunity for networking, and always use these connections nicely and appropriately going forward, and you'll have a friend for life, I'm sure. Jack, thank you for being on this program again. What's your take on this opening barrage of commentary about masculine and feminine. And how does it relate to your HR role?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, you know, a lot of people obviously see me as a male, so wonder, you know, what's my thoughts on it and things like that. But I have one daughter that's 36 years old. So I have, you know, the same perspective as a lot of you are referring to here. I see a lot, I experience a lot. So I understand the hardships, I understand. Um, I think key though is what you said earlier is more getting away from, you know, using the male, female type you know, identifiers. Just, you know, by doing that, you continue to kind of highlight that. And I think it's more of how do you just become one? You know, the same thing with DE and I, you know, when you're highlighting, you're always just dealing with one portion of it. It's not easy, but yeah, I really enjoy these discussions because of my daughter, especially, who I see go through a lot of hardships. So I think it's very interesting. I don't think it's easy, because you know it's still a lot of male dominated senior leadership. But I mean, it's a lot better than it was, but definitely not there yet. Yeah.
Everyone's got to talk here, not just me. So Mark Colo, what say you?
Get this chat typed up here. It's chat is a little more difficult for me. I have a condition called a resting tremor. You may have all heard of that. And
Yeah.
it makes
So
some challenges
you're
for
shaking, not stirring, right?
shaking and not stirring. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I'll give you one of my favorite jokes, Jack. It's been a while since we shared jokes together. I used to call on Jack years and years ago. I always loved having him on the phone. And I envied him so much because he had his job in Maui. Is that right? Was it Maui, or you were living in Maui, or was it Oahu? Oahu, wasn't it? Anyway, I always thought he was commuting by telephone to me from Hawaii. I thought that for some reason. If I'm wrong, forgive me, but it just sounded right. But anyway, so I did want to say my daughter works for a company in Iowa as a marketing firm, and she has telecommuted her whole career. So she said, you know, if I've got to live somewhere and work somewhere, I'm going to go to Hawaii. So she hopped on the plane, flew to Hawaii, and she loved being there. Just really loved the beaches, doing work on her computer on the beach. It was wonderful, just wonderful. But let me step back a ways here now and just say about this male gender thing, because I do have some opinions on it. I don't claim to be an authority on the subject. I do love organizational behavior, one of my favorite courses. It's the only course in college I got an A+ on. I don't know if they give A+ in college, but they gave me one. And I just love that whole concept of understanding each other, communicating more effectively. And we all need to communicate. We all need to talk more. We need to share more of our thoughts. One of my adaptive principles when I gave my TEDx talk here about a month ago, no, it's about 2 months, at least 2 months ago now, was that there are no coincidences in life, just miracles. But we need to learn to see the miracle. We have to see it. And so I see all of us on this call right now. What are the odds of Patrick being on the call with all of us? I don't know, but there's some odds there. Ed, you are so well connected with the world. I mean, you know so many people. But isn't it a tragedy when we come to an event like this, or we go to a conference of some kind, and we don't make an effort to shake people's hands or to say, hey, Jack, how you been? How are you doing? How was your last year? How'd it go? And all, and just to talk and communicate. Because when we learn about each other, we'll learn some amazing things. And we will see that that meeting may not have been coincidence, may have been a miracle. And so I think we need to start looking more for miracles and trying to learn from each other. And men and women, children, you know, whatever sex it is or whatever culture it is, it makes no difference to me. I think you're all great people, and I am so thankful to be on the phone with you. And I'm pretty vulnerable when I get in these situations, so I need to watch what I say. But no, I shouldn't do that. But anyway, so I'm just kind of ad-libbing here a little bit. And that's what I like about Ed shows. Ed allows us that opportunity to do some ad-libbing and kind of get off the course a little bit sometimes, but then hopefully bring it back.
I'll bring it back. Okay.
Enough said.
Annalisa, are we talking values here? What are we talking about? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm muted. I realize. Again. Yeah, I was kind of like, yes, cheering, because Dr. Natalie was talking about empathy there, and we had Tineke talking about trust, and Natalie too mentioned service and asking how can I serve you. I think in terms of masculine and feminine, it's really interesting because I do values exercises all the time. I've never broken them down into masculine and feminine. And listening to the conversation, I would just say that I think there's a little bit of a danger that we go too far the other way. I think we need balance. Because these values are, of course, extremely important. We have to, as Claudia said, bring emotional intelligence into the workplace and to raise that and to have people try to put themselves into the shoes of others when they're communicating. At the same time, when it comes to leadership, people do need decisiveness. There are times where command is required and confidence is required. People do look to leaders for those qualities, for those values as well. And so we don't want to be diluting it too far. I think it's important to know that I think in the best leaders, they bring all of these qualities. So they do bring confidence, they do bring command, they do bring decisiveness. People are looking to them to take the company in a direction and to make very difficult decisions. So we don't want to get into a situation where that is diluted and everybody's looking at everybody else then to make a decision. And leaders are, dare I use that? I'm sure Tineke is going to absolutely criticize me here for using that word, emasculated, right? Because in female leaders and in male leaders, we need those qualities, yeah? And leaders should not be afraid to exercise those because that is what they're being paid to do.
What do you think, Patrick?
Oh, wow. Yeah, this conversation is great. Listen, I can relate to a lot of it. I think, for an executive that relocated from the US to the UK and had to really shift from a cultural aspect, I think while we can get into masculine and feminine, when I talk about when I relocated to the UK and, some of the approaches of fellow Americans were discussed in board meetings negatively, I don't know that I would say that's, are the Brits more masculine or feminine? I don't know that I would break it down solely based on that. I think it can be. I also think the emotional intelligence and cultural intelligence is very, very important. When I was working with the 46 countries outside of the US, right, how I handled the team in Asia was very, very different from the team in Belgium and the team in, South Africa. So I think for me and from my experience, it's more cultural than it is masculine or feminine. But I'm loving the conversation. I think we all have a lot to learn about this. But again, I think it's cultural, emotional, and perhaps masculine, feminine.
Isha, if you're still available, I'd like you to comment on this. So jump back in when you're ready. Are you okay now?
Yeah, thank you. Talking about the UK and the US, I'm very wary about saying anything too definitive about masculine and feminine communication styles. I think people in the US are often more direct. I think that British people are often very indirect when they communicate, and whether we put this into masculine or feminine is, you know, probably a bit of a movable feast. And you know, there are cultural differences in communication styles, but how that pertains to our earlier discussion about leadership and so on, I don't know if that neatly dovetails, or whether, you know, we're sort of talking about quite grey areas. But it's very interesting to discuss intercultural differences, and obviously, you know, there's a lot of experience here in this meeting room with that. You know, what I would say from my own experience as a language coach is people do want to express themselves to the best of their ability, and that can impact people's confidence in different ways. If they're not able to, it can lead to hesitancy if they don't know how to say certain words, you know, that they may have read and they may understand them, but they don't know how to pronounce them or say them in English. And they may feel shame if they can't express themselves fully, and it may hold them back in what they're able to achieve in the workplace and in their leadership potential. So these are all sort of little hidden problems that I would like us to talk about and kind of bring out of the shadows, because there are so many values attached to communication and feelings around communication. And again, I'm sure that this dovetails somewhere with masculine and feminine leadership styles and culture, but as you can see, we're bringing a lot of factors to the table, and you know, it's becoming a very fluid and wide-ranging discussion, I think.
Yeah, interesting. Mark, I see you've enabled the closed captioning. Is that coming across legibly for you? Are you able to read it clearly?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, do you want to make a comment about what you're reading there?
Well, I just want to make a comment about where this just turned here a little bit, turned the conversation. So I want to make sure I stay on top of that, but so I don't want to get too lost in that mix. But I just want to share one experience real quick, and Annalise, you'll appreciate it. I think you will, anyways. I hope you do. When I first went on a 2-year church service mission to Northern Ireland and Scotland, it was an awakening for me. I was an expat. I was 19 years old. I was in that country, and it was not easy.
Mark, are you talking about the Mormon experience?
Yes.
Okay.
But with not too much detail. But I just want to point out that when I first stepped off the airplane and then I walked into customs, I saw 5 people standing in front of me. They're clearing customs. And I swear to you, I had never seen anyone on the planet that looked anything like them in my entire life experience to that point. It blew me away. I thought, wow, so this is what the Scott people look like. These are the people I'm going to be talking to. No way in heck I'm going to get across to these people, because I can't even figure them out just looking at them.
So they weren't wearing skirts.
I don't think they had their kilts on. No, I don't believe so. But they were there in full garb, and one guy had a mohawk that was red. Someone had piercings, they had tattoos. At that point in my life in the US, I hadn't seen a stitch of that. So I was right away put my judgment hat on. And we do that so often. We put our judgment hats on. Start saying, I got to figure this person out. Well, I don't know if I like that person. Boy, that's really weird, strange. We start making these judgments, you know. We need to try and apply a little more mercy, I believe, before we start pushing our foot down on the judgment pedal. I think we need to be a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more understanding, a little more patient. Just understand what that person's gone through, because no one can tell what we've been through until they walked in our shoes. And not too many people can actually walk in our shoes and know what we're all about. So, but that was my experience. I just wanted to share that with you.
Great, thank you.
The group was Bay City Rollers, and the song was Saturday Night. Anyone want to sing it on TV here? I can't sing it. Anyone know that? Remember that song?
I do, unfortunately.
Did you? Okay. Well, you'll sing it for us sometime. That'd be great.
Yeah. I think I had a crush on a couple of them.
Patrick, let me ask you a question about the people that you're reaching out to and have contact with at the luxury level, ultra high net worth, and everybody's throwing money at AI. Are you seeing that in your endeavors?
Yeah, I think AI continues to be, a huge priority for, a lot of firms, a lot of ultra high net worth. That is not my specialty. I wish it were, but yeah, what I'm seeing more in the industry right now, and again, Represent has shifted a little bit more from that traditional relocation mobility long-term stay into that experiential travel experience, and firms that really cultivate and curate experiences that are unlike anything we've seen in the past. It's really shifted over the years, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. I think when you get into curating experiencing, it's so fun. It's so interesting to be able to build these, packages and partnerships and alliances globally. So while I would love to be able to talk about AI, Ed, that is certainly not my specialty. But yeah, I mean, of course, it's very, very important. Virtual reality is something that I've worked on for some specific clients. But again, AI, not my specialty, but I would love to learn more about it.
Okay, let's talk about something else, the experience and travel. But I don't want to really dwell on the Titanic tragedy. But the experience of going on an international assignment, Jack, we're going to change the topic here. If an assignee could use the metaverse goggles and take a look at themselves before they go on the assignment, what would they see? Would they see a mess? Or would they see a marital breakup? Would they see a lovely brain-bending experience for themselves?
Yeah, I would probably think the latter. If we were going to do something, obviously you're not going to want to do something in the negative. So, I mean, that's the way I would think. And that's the way I think assignees, when they go out on assignment, believe it's going to be. But obviously there's just so much to the process, and I'm listening to all the different services that you provide. But what happens is it almost comes in afterwards. All these different things that these support services you're talking about comes in afterwards in hindsight, and yet they're so important. But it's like, those are the things that when there's budget involved, those are the things that are cut back on. And those are the things that really impact, the lives of those individuals. But everybody thinks they can do without that. So, we've been struggling with that. All companies have been with that portion of it. And until, you can't it's hard to put, every time you talk about ROI, about assignments, there's no meaningful way of actually coming up with an ROI. And I think until that day comes where you can definitely say, because of this, it cost us this, this will always be the issue. It's, because ROI is just different for everybody. And, companies look at bottom line, they look at dollars and cents. So that's kind of my thought process on it.
Got it. Isha, I'd like you to join this conversation with regard to preparing people to go on an international assignment in terms of language preparation and the ability to communicate clearly. Jack, of course, that's important. I know that. Isha, please comment on that.
Well, what I'm finding is, people I work with, executives, have been equipped with the language training they got from their culture of origin, and that would have been adequate to pass exams. Especially if they're older clients, they may have gone through their education at a time when the world was less globalized and we weren't using Zoom and so on, and there wasn't this need to be able to communicate at scale, at speed, to a global audience. And sometimes they are just not adequately equipped with their verbal English skills to speak clearly and confidently to an international audience about, complex technical matters, whether it's finance or engineering or, you know, some other field like this. So what I do is look at where they're getting stuck with typical mistakes that one would hear from someone with that language background. So you can imagine this sounds very different for a native French speaker than it does for an Italian speaker, for a Mandarin speaker, for a speaker of Indian languages, that they're all going to have particular difficulties with certain words, certain sounds, the rhythm of English, or even just expressing their ideas in vocabulary that is understandable to an international audience. So everything is sort of broken down into modules, and we go through, you know, we identify the problems that they're having and give them the modules that they need to gain those skills. And then we start to apply everything to their business presentations or speeches that they're going to be giving to an audience. So there's a process of understanding where they've missed out on creating certain sounds. There's a process of assimilation as they apply the new learning to the way that they've learned to speak English and the vocabulary that they have. And then there's the next step, which is, you know, really pushing them into becoming great presenters and being more confident.
Claudia, what do you think of that?
Absolutely. I think that, you know, you have to prepare. On the other hand, I think you should also manage your expectations and build up resilience. No matter how well you prepare, there's going to be cases where you will not understand and where you will not be understood, and that it is okay to do what you can with a good intent and then, you know, say that you don't know or that you can't or that you do not understand. I remember I went from Europe to the US, and as a junior in college, and so I had pretty good English. I mean, yeah, and I could even communicate fluently, but then you go into like an advanced engineering class who is a gentleman from way Western Massachusetts that talks like he has a hot potato in his mouth. I could not understand. It was noise. I did not know where the sentence started, where the sentence ended, until I got into his rhythm and his way of pronouncing. But it took me several hours of going to his lectures in order to have that click. And granted, when you stand in front of a large audience and you have to pitch your business, that's not the moment maybe to practice or to say, I don't know. So I think that there needs to be a balance, and it takes time. Languages, you don't pick up languages overnight. And I actually do believe, unfortunately, there's an element of less flexibility as we age, and maybe Aisha sees that as well. But now when I learn new languages, it's much harder than when I was younger. Yeah.
Natalie?
Well, I love this because, you know, I grew up in Germany, moved to the US, came back. And in between, I spent some time in Scotland. My brother lives in Spain. So, you know, everybody talks a little bit different. And it's not just masculine, feminine, and all of that. It's also the underlying messages, the cultural pieces. A word that you look up in the dictionary may mean something completely different to the person you're talking to. So it does come back in so many ways to the culture that you're using it on. And I don't mean just the big culture. It's even, you know, the small cultures, which in language, of course, we call it code switching. You know, how do you talk to your mom versus your friends versus at business versus when you're talking to a doctor? You're switching the way that you're talking. Plus, you know, Mark mentioned sort of like stereotyping or judgment. Now we all do it. And when I, for example, hear myself talk, like I will sometimes say, well, when I use, for example, German, I sound more masculine than when I use English in some ways.
Well,
And
German is a masculine. Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know,
Yeah.
you know, but then sometimes when I talk in German, it doesn't sound that bad. So it's like, okay, what's going on? And I think that's really, really important to understand. It's how we perceive it, it's how we use the language and all of the underlying pieces of it. It's also how we understand a culture. And so, you know, let's use a word like bad, very old example. right? It used to not mean one thing when I grew up. It was one thing and one thing only. It meant bad. And then I go to the US and teach African American history, and all of a sudden bad means good. And I'm like, hold on a second. Doesn't make any sense. Bad is bad. So it constantly evolves, just like we constantly evolve. And so when we do international business, expats, they need to know all of that. They don't just need to know the language. They don't just need to know the culture. They need to know the subcultures. They need to know how many different ways there are to say something. It's really, really interesting. And sometimes, you know, masculine, feminine, I don't know. And the last thing I want to add before Annalisa jumps in is the AI part. It has become so scary because they can actually imitate part of what we're trying to say. And the danger is that we're just giving it over to AI, which has been trained by someone from a cultural background with a certain understanding of language. So I did an experiment, you know, I wrote an article, and then I asked one of the AI thingies to write it for me, and then I asked it to translate it. It didn't make any sense to me in the translation. But when I asked it right away, can you write me an article on this subject in this language? It sounded very different. So it still requires us to know the language, to know the culture. And I think we can use AI in some ways to help us get started with ideas. And then, you know, we need to jump in ourselves, but we need to understand all of those connected items.
Thank you, Dr. Natalie. We have about 15 minutes remaining, and I want to cover the experiential thing, Jack, regarding assignment planning, assignment preparation, and then curating the assignment. So that, which means once the people are in planet A on assignment, do you jump in and help them do more while they are there, or do you take hands-off approach? But before we get to you, I want to bring back Annalisa. What do you want to say about what the ladies have been saying here the past few minutes?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Ed. So I just wanted to pick up, we're talking a lot about language, which obviously is really important. And I just wanted to add that it's also about tone that varies so much between cultures as well. Tone and even body language, the way that we gesticulate and emphasize our words. And I think it was Natalie that mentioned that in healthcare. I think you mentioned it in that sector. So important. If you are a patient, a lot of patients in a hospital feel anxious because nurses don't have time to spend with them these days, to explain what's going on, what's happening. And I found myself when I was a patient that some nurses from different cultures, their body language or their tone of voice, just because, and it was explained to me, because they come from different cultures, could not add to the patient experience in a positive way, shall we say. So I think there is a huge case there for raising the understanding, okay, in the health sector, amongst, you know, nurses who do, and doctors who do a fantastic job of coming, you know, to whatever country, whether it's coming into Britain or whatever country they're traveling to, they do a great job. But just raising their awareness that tone matters and body language matters in the patient experience, I think. So I just wanted to make that point.
Jack, just 1 minute. So Claudia, you wrote here, implicit, explicit. What, that's beyond my scope today. What does that mean?
Well, it means direct versus saying it in a way that a lot is left to be read or understood between the lines. Right. So typical, very easy thing is husband and wife. Guy is more of a direct. He would, you know, and the wife is a little bit more implicit. The wife would say, "Oh, honey, it's hot in here." And what she means is, please get up and open the window. But the guy is not going to react to that in the way that she understands, because he just hears, it's hot in here. Yeah, it's hot in here. And what he would have expected is, please, honey, get up and open the window. And he would have gladly done it. So there is this implicit sense making that happens. And in this implicit, essentially, interpretation of what is being said, a lot of cultural messages and assumptions and heuristics play into that. And if you take somebody who is truly from a very relationship-based collectivist culture like China or Korea, and they come to a place where it's very direct and very to the point, they, even if they understand the language, they're not going to understand the message.
Got
Or
it.
they're going to be maybe affronted or shocked by it. Yeah.
Well, husband and wife partners have the same issue day in, day out. I got one at home. Jack, I'm sorry to delay. So when signees go on, I talk about confusion, when the signees go into a new place and they are there already, and they have the 6-month honeymoon is over and then reality sets in. Is there a time and place where you ask your counselors, your service providers to make contact and check in and maybe curate that relationship more?
I have a different thought process than a lot of other mobility managers, and that is that there's people on the ground that are in supportive roles in the organizations. Okay, one of my roles is to make sure we get them from point A to point B and provide the right benefits and everything like that. But at some point, the organization has to take responsibility for that individual, and that could be through a mentorship program, or that could be through managers checking in on them. But as I'm listening to everybody, it just strengthens how complex assignments are, depending on what country you're going to, depending on there's so much to it. And I think just like even when we're having mobility benefits in the US, not everybody gets the same. It depends. Okay, we have people going on organizational for their development opportunities. We have senior leaders. We have people going for projects. So the word I can say is it depends. They're all treated differently for whatever reasons, and it's the same in the US. We don't provide the same support to every single transferee. So I think it's such a complex process. It's not usually a large population of a company. And if we try to do things good for larger groups, okay, and of course you want to do good for these individuals as well, because that's my responsibility. But when you look at the numbers of how many we hire compared to how many we put on assignments, there's a big difference. So as much as we, because it's our roles, want it to be perfect, again, it comes down to a lot of, dollars and cents and time and resources. It's not easy. We try our best to, drive that employee experience, but it cannot be done perfectly.
Patrick, back to you here. I want to make the most of our time with you. I know you're really busy. And tell me about what you think of this discussion as it's evolved in the last 10 minutes or so, compared to how it first started. This is not rehearsed, folks. Perhaps you could tell. No script. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think it's a brilliant conversation for someone who, listen, I went through relocation on my own, right? So I resigned my role with a company I had been with for 15 years and relocated to the UK. I think I always joke about this because my friends and family, they're like, oh, well, you're just going to the UK, right? You speak the same language. No, we don't. I think when I relocated to the UK, I was not prepared for some of those challenges I was about to face. simple challenges like public transportation. I had never taken public transportation, taking the tube to work every day. And, I relocated in the summer, and I talk about this. I have been wearing a full suit, except for today, since I was a child. And I got on the tube in a full suit in the middle of summer. And that's a mistake. But I think by being thrown into those scenarios, I learned very, very quickly. But things that Jack and mobility and that support offer, I didn't have that support. I will say repatriating back to the US was as challenging for me. I had become very accustomed to life in London. So I relocated right back to Philadelphia for about 2 weeks and then right into West Palm Beach. So you talk about culture change, London to West Palm Beach. I loved it. But there were things, again, I wasn't really prepared for. Life was very different in the 5 years that I was gone in the US. And, again, I can't imagine relocating to a country where you didn't speak the language. In fact, a lot of the people in the network that I'm involved, they speak 5, 6, 7 languages. I joke and say I speak English and British because to me, they are two very different languages. And humor itself, right? My humor in the US was very, very different. And it's different now than it once was. But I think the conversation is brilliant. I think Jack really hit the nail on the head when he said complexity, because this is complex. This is not simple. And I think all of these different components come into play when you're talking about, mobility, relocation, and feminine versus masculine. I think they're all accurate. I think, what a brilliant conversation that we are in so many different cultures, and we've dealt with so many different cultures. But again, I have to chuckle because doing relocation on your own, wow, it's eye-opening. And repatriation, same thing. So love the conversation.
Thank you so much for your time today, everybody. We have a few more minutes. So Annalisa, what does your broadcast look like for the summer?
Oh, right. Okay. You're talking about a show of values, I guess.
A show of values. Yeah.
Yes. Well, you'll be coming at some point, Ed. Yes, our interview that we did together a couple of months ago. So yes, you'll be next. And John and I have got another one in the can. And we'll be looking maybe, I would imagine probably 2, maybe 3 months before we actually start inviting other guests on to join us. It's been really difficult because with John being over in the States, that time difference, and us both having so many different commitments, just trying to get together to do it has been a challenge. So we will be back. But yeah, it's just taking us longer than we thought it would do to get the momentum going. You gave us some really good advice, actually, Ed, when you came on. You said, don't worry about the polish, because of course, I'm taking it into editing. I'm doing lots of post-production on it. And that is, see Natalie shaking her head. Dr. Natalie. No. But yeah, because I had this, this vision of it being like a TV show, and I wanted those production values, and that has added a tremendous amount of time to it. And you came on and you said, if I give you a piece of advice, just do it. Just get it up there. Don't worry about all those values. Just get the content out there. It was good advice. But I haven't taken it. No.
Okay, Mark Colo, yesterday or no, the day before, you and I recorded a commercial for Stephen Howard's use in Aspen, and at this huge conference. And I said, here, you take this and chop it up and get somebody who knows what they're doing. I am not an editor. And so I tried to do it. I tried to do the pre-cut and then skip to the end cut. And I got so screwed up. I just said, I'm done. You do it.
I think I found that same boat, Ed, with you. I think I see at least 9 or 10 faces here looking at me that could do it and can do a great job. And so if you want to have some dialogue after the call, please call. Let's
This is
chat
about
it.
editing a 4-minute and 42-second thing that we did the
I
other
want
day.
something that's a
And Stephen
masterpiece.
said he needs 30 to 60 seconds. How are we going to do that?
Well, I think you all are qualified. I want to say one thing about the word, Jack shared a word and it reminded me of another word about this. It's a great word to remember when you're in a relationship or in a marriage situation. And the word is different. So if you can all just remember, if you get that little fight, that splat, that little spat, that little disagreement, or that's not close to what I'm thinking, remember we're all different. You know, take a step back and, you know, see the miracle and then work it out. You know, I mean, it's so hard with relationships these days, I think, to get on the same page. And one last word I want to share, Ed, one last word was about when I first rode a bus in downtown Belfast for my first cultural experience in Northern Ireland. I was sitting in the back of the bus. We had just gone shopping. I opened up my bag. I said, I hope these pants fit when I wash them. Now, you have any idea how many heads turned around and laughed at me? Any idea why they were laughing at me?
No.
Because pants over there are called trousers. You don't call them pants because you're saying underwear.
Oh, that's underwear.
So the whole bus was looking at me like, well, let's see. I don't know what those are going to look like when you wash them. You know, it was wild.
Yeah, just throw them out.
Anyway, yeah, that's my 2 cents. All right.
Oh, this is funny. Well, folks, our next broadcast in a group fashion is going to be August 2. Oh, no, I'm sorry, July 11. I'm losing a month. And that's called Global Tech Talent. And we were going to have a couple of techie people on this show, but for everybody's busy, last minute things prevented them from showing up today, but we did very well without them, but they will be on that program. Global Tech Talent will have people from Dubai and from France and England and Latin America. Speaking about Latin America, on August 2 will be Global LATAM, Global Latin America. We have people from Mexico and from Brazil, 2 people from Brazil, and the former executive VP of Colgate-Palmolive for Latin America, Philip Berry, is going to be joining us. He was stationed there, fluent in Spanish, and then moved on to Paris and ran 60 countries, global HR for Colgate-Palmolive. So he'll be on that program, and that is August 2. In late August, we're going to be doing a focus on Asia Pacific. First, Global Japan will be a show, and then another one, I'm not sure the exact title, but in Global South Asia, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Australia, New Zealand, Manila, Vietnam, whoever else wants to join us. So we've got some interesting things happening. In September, we're going to be back in London live and also beam it virtually as well. And HSBC, the bank, is going to host us again, which of course I'm honored for that. And then we're going to move on into Europe, but that is not set up yet. Patrick, perhaps you'd like to join us at another time. You and I once talked about the idea of some kind of luxury travel idea.
Sure. Yeah, I would love to be back on. This is my 3rd time on, Ed.
Yeah, thank you. I know, that's cool. Many more to come. Annalisa has been on many times. and
I have. I'm so
Dr.
grateful.
Natalie, and thank you very much, all of you. It's been great. Okay, let's go do something else today and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Bye,
Yeah,
Ed.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay, you'll all get this show in a few minutes. Well, maybe an hour.
Don't edit.